we continue to talk about with the Arizona Cardinals how much better their roster is. And I have fallen into the trap. I have been someone who has talked about this could be a top 10 roster in football next year. I mean, look at the players on this team: McBride, Connor, Harrison, Michael Wilson Jr. I think Greg Dortch, Zay Jones are good backup options to those guys. And then you look defensively. Yes, the pass rush was abysmal last year. However, they added player after player after player after player. Jordan Birch, Baron Browning last year, Walter Nolan, Josh Sweat, Calais Campbell, Dalvin Tomlinson. They just kept taking swings at the bat on this team. And you see the roster play out and you're like, damn, I kind of like this thing. This looks like to me a roster that could really pan out for the future. And even this year more so, this could be one of the better rosters in the NFL. And I could buy that. However, these guys need to perform first before we start ranking them higher. And I am guilty of that as well. ESPN put out what is likely one of the better rankings ESPN put out what is one of the better rankings than most of the other rankings that are done. I really like the quarterback tiers list that Mike Sando puts out every year for The Athletic. That'll come out, I'm assuming, in a couple of weeks here, and we'll be able to see where Kyler Murray falls. But ESPN does top 10 position rankings as ranked done by coaches, scouts, and executives. I think it is a really good way to get a snapshot of who the top 10 players at each position are. The Cardinals had 2 players total. 2 players total on the list. 3 players total if you want to talk about honorable mentions. Trey McBride, who came in the middle of the pack of those lists, and Budda Baker, who came in at the lower end of the safeties list. So when you talk about the Cardinals having a better roster than a lot of other teams in the NFL, man, I'm sorry. That's just not really looking like the case as a whole. It is a little frustrating to see, oh my goodness, I think maybe we overvalued the Cardinals' positions. Because when you only have 2 players, Trey McBride on the tight ends who's ranked lower than you think, and Budda Baker ranked 7th, if I'm not mistaken, on the top safeties list by ESPN, that's 2 players in the top 10s at their respective position. There's no Kyler Murray on the list. There's no Josh Sweat on the list. There's no James Conner on the list, although he was an honorable mention on the running backs list. It leads me to believe, are the Cardinals talented enough next year to truly compete? Or are we putting higher expectations on this team and are about to be dropped on our little heads? Because I think that is becoming more of a possibility than we actually think. The Cardinals, we believe, have the talent, but it's not respected upon by the rest of the NFL. And you know what? Good. Under the radar is exactly where the Arizona Cardinals should be. It's exactly where they need to be. They haven't earned anything. This is the point I was making with Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ossenfort a couple of days ago. When everyone was talking about, not everyone, that's a really general term. When most people were talking about this not being a make or break year for Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ossenfort, I would likely say to you that I agree. However, I'm not going to act like they're untouchable. Everyone on this roster needs to feel pressure. Winning off-season headlines doesn't do anything for me, and I'm sure it doesn't do anything for you. So when I see people like myself, and I'm sure people in the chat today who have looked at the Cardinals roster and said, damn, it is so much more improved from last year. Maybe we're talking about a 1970s junker going from that to a 2004 Kia Sorento or Kia Sorento, whatever it is. Maybe that's the case. And when you talk about a 25-year difference in cars, Yeah, the 2004 Kia Sorento is going to drive better than the 1970s clunker you were driving before. However, at the end of the day, it's still a 2004 Kia Sorento. So when I look at the Arizona Cardinals, it's a better team for sure, as my guy Aaron in the chat says. However, are we overvaluing it a bit? Because over the last couple of years, this team's roster was garbage. It's like what I've continued to say about the pass rushing position. I don't expect the Cardinals to have a top 10, top 5 pass rush this year. I think that is putting unrealistic expectations on Sweat, Baron Browning, Dalvin Tomlinson, Walter Nolan, all those guys, Calais Campbell. I think that is putting unrealistic pressure on what I believe will be a good pass rush this year. I do think they'll be in the top half, but that's not an elite level pass rush group. That's a good pass rush group. But going from the worst pass rush group in the NFL to middle of the pack is such a ginormous jump that even I did leaps for it. I was freaking out over it. I was ecstatic about the new team. But what's perfect about these lists on ESPN's rankings, as done by scouts, coaches, and executives, that the Cardinals only have 2 players, Budda Baker at the safety position, Trey McBride at the tight end position. You know what that says? Executives, coaches, and scouts around the league look at the Arizona Cardinals and say, yeah, your roster's better, but it's not one of the better rosters in the NFL. And that's exactly the kick in the you-know-what that Cardinals fans needed to hear, that the Arizona Cardinals needed to hear. Because you don't just get to be crowned as a team that is Super Bowl or playoff contenders each and every year. You actually have to do the thing. I know. How insane. So, and I've gotten in a fight with my guy Alex Clancy on the Locked On Cardinals squad show, and he makes a couple of good points too. However, when we talk about anyone being safe this year, I hate that. Add a little pressure to everyone. I like Jonathan Gannon, and 95% chance he comes back next year. I like Monty Ossenfort, 95% chance he comes back next year. However, there is that 5% chance that I want them to feel just a little bit of pressure on the hot seat. That if this season is dismantled and is a disastrous season, we could be gone too. The vets on the team, James Conner, Budda Baker, could we get cut? Kyler Murray, well, I'm never going to make as much money as I am if I flame out this season. Everyone needs to feel pressure. And that's the point I've been trying to make. And my guy Saul in the chat would like to see one more move from the Cardinals. Here, TJ Watt is available. Hendricks. Listen, I agree with you. TJ Watt, it looks like he's going to get like $30 million a year. And at 30 years old, I think I'm good. And he's gotten more injury prone. Not super, but he has dealt with his injuries. That's not really what I'm looking for. However, I think your head's in the right place. And combine it with what my guy Aaron is saying in the chat. Don't be complacent. You do not actually know when your time is going to be, when you will be true championship contenders. No one thought the Commanders were contenders last year, and no one thought 2 years ago the Lions were contenders. You want to know why? Because those are two dumpster fire organizations. And I hate to break it to you, Cardinals, not too far away from being a dumpster fire organization or potentially one already. So when your chance comes to make some noise, you need to be able to answer the bell. So how will you answer the bell? Monty Ossenfort, Jonathan Gannon, Kyler Murray, Budda Baker, Trey McBride, James Conner, Marvin Harrison Jr. So no one should feel complacent or safe or think that their job cannot be had. I'll tell you what can change that in an instant. A disastrous season, a losing season, a season once again where you miss the playoffs, going a decade plus without winning the division. So I get it. I think the Cardinals are going to be better this year too. I think that they not likely, because that's tough to say. I think there's a good chance they win a playoff game this year. But you know what I'm not doing? Not just grabbing my pen and putting this team down for the Super Bowl, putting this team down for the conference championship. I think all these good things can happen if you don't lose sight of what's actually important. And that's getting to the playoffs and making noise and not feeling like you've already done that because we've crowned you kings of the offseason. That's only half the battle. The other half is going to war and actually making it happen.